when people come to me and like, well, I've thought about being a cop, but the way the media portrays us and the way people don't respect them, I just let them know, hey, you can be the change. I mean, you get out there, you do things by the book, do it the correct way. Don't get caught up in what the media says, or, get hung up on, more and more people are disliking police. It's not the case. Like I said, there are a lot of good officers still out there, and if someone wants to be a police officer, I tell them my experiences, and it's not all bad. Not all people are bad. Not all people are criminals. Just try to be that change, and the stigma that police have at the moment.
Welcome to Just Men, a life-changing program that resonates hope as well as encouragement. The program that gives you information and inspiration for the glory of God. I'm your host, Jeff Tate, and thank you for joining Just Men. On today's program, we have a very special guest. This is his first time being on Just Men. Please welcome Eric Crowder. Brother Crowder, welcome to Just Men.
Thank you, sir.
Man, it's a pleasure for you to be on Just Men. And let me say on the onset, you add value to our program, and we're just grateful and thankful for you to take the time to kind of come with me and we just talk about your life and some of the things that you're doing to impact our community. And so having said that, man, tell us a little bit about who is Eric Crowder.
All right. Born and raised in Nashville. Family moved to Antioch when I was about 6 years old. So, Nashville, Antioch area. Been married 10 years as of next week. I've got 2 little girls, aged 10 and 4. Grew up in Shirley Lane Church of Christ. That's where I met my friend Joel, who invited me to do the show with you. Police officer as of 9 years this coming February. Worked for Laverne Police Department. And, that's it in a nutshell of who I am.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your upbringing and what kind of shaped your mind, and especially to go into law enforcement. I don't know if that started in the early stages of your life or something that influenced you to say, hey, that's going to be a profession that I want to dive into, or if it just happened overnight. Kind of share a little bit about your upbringing and what you were around and what were the men in your life in shaping and giving you, helping you to develop as a man.
Well, grew up Shirley Lane Church of Christ, and, went to church faithfully Sundays, Wednesdays. Excuse me. And, growing up in the church, my uncle being a minister at Jackson Street Church of Christ helped me, learn that faith and being faithful to God. And as far as being a police officer, it's kind of one of those, almost every little boy wants to be a police officer, but when you get older, you see more experiences that really makes you want to be a police officer. I have a cousin who currently works with the TBI, and seeing him and going through his career really shaped me and wanted to be a police officer.
Yeah. Is there any sort of point or something that's very memorial or that you remember that sort of resonate in your mind and spirit that said, hey, when you was exposed to that just really made the shift to where you really was dedicated in pursuing this career?
Again, it goes back to my cousin. Just listening to some of the interactions he's had as being a police officer. And, again, going back to growing up in the church, just wanting to serve people and be there and be that light for people who may feel down and out and think the world is just this cloudy place and there's no point in doing good because there's so much evil around you.
Yeah. So what does that mean to be a police officer? I mean, kind of go behind the scene. What does that mean, and how is it reflective in your day-to-day dealing and interaction with people?
To me, being a police officer is, not to sound cliche, but to actually protect and serve. And the older I get and the longer I'm in it, I slow down and actually talk to people. Whereas when I first started, I was kind of running and gunning, you know, not really thinking about what I was doing. But the older I get, take a step back, you know, try to think of other people's perspective and see it at their level. And okay, you know, let me actually help them instead of, you know, just, oh, I'm going to take this person to jail as soon as I talk to them. Just trying to get a mindset of how they were brought up or what they're going through.
Yeah, I know that many times, and we'll talk a bit about how the media and how the community are starting to now perceive police officers. They don't, in many aspects, don't see you as to serve and to protect. They have a different persona about you. And I've always had the question in my mind about, you know, where does the line sort of shift from being punitive versus being corrective, and how do you keep a balance between your faith and in situations where you have to enforce the law, and sometimes that is in a very aggressive environment. So how do you balance all of that, and how do you deal with that just on a personal level as well as in your career?
Well, again, you know, just being a man of God, you got to really break it down and, you know, think of other people's upbringing and what's the word I'm looking for? You know, we're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
When, like we were talking earlier, when I get home, uniform comes off. I'm dad. I'm husband. I'm Eric, just regular Eric, not cop, not anything like that. So, you know, you got to find that common line. You got to have outlets. When you're on the job, you can't just be a robot and say, oh, I'm here just to strictly arrest people, just to find bad people, because it's not all about that, and everybody's not bad. Some people get caught up in bad situations, and, you know, so you just have to take a lot of things in perspective and just weigh it all out, and at the end of the day, like I said, find that line. And, you know, everybody's situation is different, so you got to be quick on your feet sometimes and think, okay, is this person really a bad person, or did they just make a bad decision, got caught up in a bad situation, wrong place, wrong time?
Yeah. So how do you prepare for that? I mean, I know that you go through the various training that you have, and it seems like now so many things can happen that you're unprepared for, and you have to pull on maybe your faith, or pull on that gut instinct, or pull on another source. You know, you're relying on your partner, you're relying on a lot of things that come to play, but then you have those unique situations, so where, you know, it's not programmed, it's not the way it was scripted out.
Oh yeah.
And you got to respond. How do you deal with that, and how do you respond?
Well, one example is a traffic stop, and like you kind of said, the media, I hate the word routine traffic stop, and that's just one example, because no traffic stop is routine. Out of every car you stop, you know, some go how you think it would go, but then there's those few occasions where it's like, okay, this is what I expected. And you just rely on your training, your partners, and you know, over time it almost becomes like clockwork. But again, there's always that potential where, you know, the unknown is there, and you just have to rely on your training and work through it.
Yeah. Do you always have to be on your guard? I mean, you never can be complacent. Say, for instance, in the media, if they're saying that police officers are over aggressive, especially when it comes to, say, African American males or black males, is there a tendency to give more of a benefit of the doubt because the media is saying, hey, it's been unsupported in the way they arrested and how they use their aggression, and so therefore you kind of back up a little bit when normal situations you follow the book, you follow the protocol, irregardless of the circumstances? Or do you allow your emotions and everything else, what my friend called the crowd noise, to affect, you know, you following procedures? How do you deal with that in your mindset?
Well, in law enforcement, it's almost like when you're in uniform and on the job, it's like eyes are on you at all times. But me, like I said, the longer I do it, the older I get, the more mature I get. I just, you know, I do my job. according to the bylines and guidelines and laws and regulations. So, you know, I'm not really concerned about, you know, people having their cell phones out and, oh, you shouldn't have done that, or why are you doing this? As long as I know I'm doing it in the rules and regulations and the policies my department has set, then it becomes second nature. I don't really think about it.
Wow, that's good. Let's dive into Eric is the Man. Especially the word comes to heart is sacrifice. Talk to me about what sacrifice means to you and how you've applied it even in your own life, where others will say, hey, that man have sacrificed. We see it being embodied in Eric because of what he done, whether it was heroic or whatever nature. Share a little bit about what the term sacrifice means to you.
Sacrifice to me, you know, you're willing to do whatever it takes for someone. You know, the saying, give your shirt off your back to someone else. Even if I don't have it, I will find a way to get it for you or do something for you. You know, just, what's the word I'm looking for? Just willing to do someone like God did with his son Jesus. Just, you know, he gave his only son for our sins. I mean, we could never do anything like that, but, you know, we want to be as close as we can to that and just be willing to help out your fellow man, whatever the cause.
Wow, that's beautiful. Talk to me about my understanding, the sacrifice for one of your fellow workers, one of your fellow man, in terms of what you've done and how that came about, that form of sacrifice.
Found out a co-worker of ours was going through kidney failure. And, you know, initially he was being very humble about it, wasn't really telling anybody till his wife posted on social media. And, you know, the word kind of started getting out. Then it came to our police department. And I went to him, I'm like, man, why didn't you come to me with this? You know, we're supposed to be friends, co-workers, you know, the whole 9 yards. He's like, well, I really didn't want to say anything to anybody or anything like that. And long story short, he told me how to get tested. I went through the testing, and come to find out I was a match, and I donated a kidney to him.
Wow, man, that's awesome. You know, that's to be commended beyond what I can say in words in terms of our program. But you're talking about sacrifice when you give your member, you know, your body to someone, a loved one, or even a coworker. I mean, you're talking about sacrifice. So not only are you putting yourself on the front line in arm's way to provide security and provide, you know, like you said, to serve and to protect, but actually applying it even in the personal areas of your life in terms of that. So, man, that is awesome. When you start talking about sacrifice, that is sacrifice. That is the picture of sacrifice. Not only what Christ did at Calvary and reconciled us and redeemed us into a new creation in him, but to reflect him in every area of our life. I mean, when people listen to our show and they'll say, well, there's no way I can believe that that's a police officer. When I see the self-control and the level of focus, but, you know, the social media and perception have really given many times police officers a bad name from that standpoint. What would you say to that type of crowd noise or perception out in the community about how they should be looking at the police force in general?
Well, you know, it's kind of one of those situations is like if one person does one wrong thing, then it ruins it for the whole bunch. There are still a lot of good officers out there. I work with them day in, day out, and it kind of starts, one example, a pet peeve of mine is when I go into a grocery store and a parent, you see that officer? He's gonna arrest you if you don't act right. So it almost kind of starts as a child. You're building that in their head that when they see an officer, oh no, I think I'm gonna go to jail. So if we can stop doing that, certain things like that, and you know, in the black community, growing up African American, it's just that culture, you know, a lot of us don't respect the police. And whether it due to racism or whatever the case may be, we've got to get over that stigma that all cops are racist, we only target blacks, because that's not the case. But again, there are a lot of good officers still out there, and they just let one bad situation ruin it for the rest of the officers.
Yeah, wow, that's good. I mean, I like your perspective because it's, you know, at the end of the day, I know the Word talks about, Galatians talks about that, that if we walk in the Spirit, we will not fulfill the lust of the flesh. And they start talking about all these characteristics of the flesh. And what's amazing about this flesh and about disobedience and disorder is it's not a respecter of person. It's not even a respecter, actually, of position. Because some of the parents are dealing with the same undisciplined lives in their home without enforcement. I mean, I deal with it as well in terms of just dealing with young people, the mindset of having respect for authority, whether they're in a uniform or without a uniform, just having respect for an adult from that standpoint. So I know that it has to be a difficult task for the police force and to draw those bounds, especially a man of faith, someone who believes in Christ. And how does that your faith affect you day to day, and how do you apply that in your home? Because I really want to talk about when you take the uniform off, and you said that's when I'm married, I'm father and I'm a husband. So how does your day to day routine work in the law enforcement, and then you come back to home and you take that uniform off? How does your faith helps you to be a husband, help you to be a father?
Well, every morning, regardless, I wake up, just thank God for another day, ask Him to watch over us as we go through the day on the job, kiss my kids and my wife goodbye, just throughout the day, no matter what I see, because we see some pretty terrible things. Yeah, there's been times where I'll get off a call or someone's house or something like that, and I just say a quick prayer and be like, God, just continue to be with us. I know there's still good on this earth, because if it wasn't, excuse me. I mean, just everyday things that we see, we know He's still there blessing us. And when I get home at the end of the day, I thank God for letting me make it home. And I let my hair down and just kind of lay down, watch TV with my kids or play outside, whatever the case may be, but ultimately just thank God for letting me make it to work, through work, and home safely.
Wow, man, that's beautiful. Talk a bit about your wife, man. I know she has to be an awesome woman, man. I mean, because it can be easy. I mean, especially many times, even my wife, I travel a lot, and sometimes there is anxiety that comes with that if I don't answer the phone or I'm on the road. And now you're entering into a whole different zone day to day, right? And so I know that many times the wind that's beneath our wings is our wives. And so talk to me about your wife, man, and what does she bring to you in terms of your relationship?
What a lot of people really don't realize is, yes, us as officers, we do have a hard job, tough time dealing with the public, but it's really the people behind the scenes, the wife of an officer or the husband of an officer. They're the ones that really have the anxiety, because that's that unknown, is my loved one coming home. And she has supported me throughout my career. Actually, I wouldn't be the man I am a great deal because of her. She supports me 100% in everything I do. And again, I don't know where I would be without her.
Wow, that's awesome. It's amazing. Many times people, when they even watch Just Men, they think that our program is about men, but really it's about the standard. It's about the standard of God that should be reflected in everyone. And how do you embody that? How do you take what I call the words off the pages of the book and begin to be that living epistle where you become God's word? And every time someone has an encounter with you, they're actually having an encounter with the Father. They have an encounter with God. But it's unfortunate that some of us, we give people religion, but we don't give them relationship. And it is the relationship. The power has always been in the relationship, not the religion, not the rhetoric. It's a relationship. It's the human touch. It is that encouraging word that you may give, or some leniency that you give, and understanding that, hey, I know that this can change, aspiring word and so forth. So it's just amazing when I have you on here on the program, how just your countenance it's an countenance of peace. And you said that's why I'm in this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
To serve and to protect and actually to bring peace. But many times there's just another message that runs underneath and runs sort of contrary to that. And so I believe that today, just listening to you is definitely unraveling that myth and understand that underneath that uniform, there's still, God's creation, God's workmanship. And so it's just beautiful, man. It is really beautiful. So where do you go from here in terms of just, the development and being able to have maybe even a more effective way or effective approach in how you address the community and sort of helping people to also come into the law enforcement or to want to pursue this? How do you make being a police officer a good thing again, right? I mean, because it's like, nah, man, I don't want to be no cop, man. I don't want to be no. So how do you change it? How do you get people to see it differently, man?
Well, when people come to me and like, well, I've thought about being a cop, but, the way the media portrays us and the way people don't respect them, I just let them know, hey, you can be the change. I mean, you get out there, you do things by the book, do it the correct way. Don't get caught up in what the media says or, get hung up on more and more people are disliking police. It's not the case. Like I said, there are a lot of good officers still out there, and if someone wants to be a police officer, I tell them my experiences, and it's not all bad. Not all people are bad. Not all people are criminals. Just try to be that change. And the stigma that police have at the moment.
Yeah, that's good. I know a friend of mine, he calls it, he's in the sports arena kind of atmosphere, and he says, one of the things that I don't allow to affect my game, and that is crowd noise, good or bad.
Yeah.
When you're at home, everybody cheering for you, but then you go to that visitor team, and then they're cheering against you, right? They're actually wanting harm to come about you. But he says one thing, they're not on the field. Whether you're in your home court or you're at a visiting court, they're not on your field. So it's crowd noise, and you can't allow those crowd noise to distract you from the focus. And obviously our focus is God himself, to stay focused on him, because apart from him, the people won't see the love that he has for them through us, right? They won't see the grace. They won't see the mercy. They read about it and they may hear about it, but do they experience it? And I think they do experience it through you, and they experience it through me when we stay in the Word and we stay connected and we become an illumination of the relationship that we have with him. But there's times I know, man, and that's why I want to ask you, and as we starting to close a little bit, is how do you deal with adversity, man? I mean, how do you deal with, because I'm talking to young kids and they're like, man, your coping skills, we got to work on some coping skills here, and your ability to persevere and your ability to not react to everything, right? I mean, in terms of that. And so how do you deal with that when you've seen all these things day after day after day? How do you deal with it?
Well, again, just keeping the faith and knowing that at the end of the day, God is with all of us. And, just for example, with the younger kids, with Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, all that, whereas I'm sure you didn't have it and I didn't have it when we were growing up, people see that and it becomes their reality. And when I talk to these younger kids, it's like, everything you see on social media, don't believe the hype. I mean, step back to reality. And I just talk to them man to man or man to woman, and just give them the perspective that everything you see is not gold. So I try to mentor them for those few minutes, and hopefully something will stick with them when I'm in contact with them. But I just try to leave them with a positive. Even if I do end up having to arrest somebody, I still try to talk to them and get where their mindset is, and just let them know, hey, even though you're in this situation, when you're out of this, you can still rely on me and talk to me if you ever need me, stuff like that.
Wow. Do you have any success stories? I mean, anything that resonate or come to mind where you've seen a change, you've seen a shift?
There was an example, young guy, he was thinking about committing suicide. And, you know, another officer and I arrived on scene, and we talked to him. We didn't show up, oh, what do you want to do this for? Don't be, you know, selfish, stuff like. We just talked to him like we're talking, just had a conversation with him. At the end of the day, he was like, well, you know, man, you have restored my faith in police officers, because every other police interaction I've ever had has always been negative. And he was like, I just want to thank you guys for taking the time and actually talking to me like a human being and not just jumping down my throat. And I don't see him as often anymore, but every once in a while he seems like he's doing a lot better and got his life back together.
Wow, man, that is awesome. It's amazing, that word respect, how much that holds when it comes to the human relationship. We say respect, but at the end of the day, it's love.
Yeah.
It really is. It's deeper than that, but as men, hey, respect. You know, give me respect, right? Give me love. No, man. I mean, I've got brother, I love you. No, man, I love you, brother. You know, I love you. I mean, it's hard dealing with that part of it, right? But that's, so we use the word respect. We use the word courage and all these other words, right? But underneath that, the heart is broken. And without the love, it becomes abandoned. And so what happened, it starts launching out, and when it should be launching in. And so when you go in, that's amazing, man, what you shared, and I appreciate that. It's so powerful, man. I mean, the things you share, we got to have you back on, and I want you to give us some closing remarks, just the words of encouragement. I mean, things that will come to your heart that as you encountering people in the law enforcement arena, for them to get them to see the man behind the uniform, you know, behind what they may have done that is not in compliance with the law. You know, what word of encouragement that you would have for people who encounter you?
You know, again, at the end of the day, not all people are bad. Not all cops are bad. There are a lot of good people still left on this earth. And just remember that, and just keep the faith, and just remember that when you encounter police, we're not all looking just to take you straight to jail. That's not what we were hired for. And again, it goes back to protect and serve. That's what we get into this for.
Wow, man, that is beautiful. You've blessed me. You really have. Thank you for being on the program, man. We got to have you back on, man.
I'll be glad to be back.
Wow, that's good. I tell you, we breaking down that myth, brother. That myth is gone, man.
I hope so.
Yeah, it is. Wow, brother.
Thank you.
Man, you're God's best.
Thank you.
And stay focused. Thank you. Wow, awesome, man.